Professor Ian Chubb is the new chief scientist, and he comes to the position at a time when science and its funding need an advocate more than ever. I spoke with Ian Chubb and suggested that whilst science has been under attack since Galileo, perhaps it's now living through another unenlightened age.
Well, I wasn't alive when Galileo was having his troubles, so I'm not quite sure that I could give you a good answer to that question. But broadly speaking, I think there are times in our history when certain things have gone against the publicly accepted, or in Galileo's case, the position accepted and adopted by the church, when science has been challenged. Not on the basis of the science, but on the conclusions, because they don't fit preconceived ideas that are not necessarily born of science. And so I think it's pretty tough at the moment. I would guess there have been tough times in the past, but we always sort of start with Galileo and Copernicus, who both got done over because the churches of the time, or church people of the time, churchmen, didn't agree with the position they were putting. So, but we have more means at our disposal now. My guess is that a lot of people didn't know about what was happening to Galileo until we look back at it. But, his contemporaries. Now, emails, blogs, newspapers, radios, TVs, multiple means of getting argumentation out, and they're all used.
Do you think the level of vitriol directed at science at the moment is unprecedented?
Well, I think in my experience it is. And there are doubtless multiple reasons why that's so. But I suspect that part of it is that when people are anxious about the future, when the community at large is uncertain about the future, they need commentary, they need advice, they need information that tries to help them come to some better certainty, better understanding. And I think it's our obligation to get that message out there. When you do that, of course there are people who disagree with you. And what you have available now is multiple means to get that disagreement out. And oftentimes I think that's confusing for the public. But it's also an important part of the debate. I mean, I don't think that we should simply say, because a group says X, that X is therefore the path or the route or the solution that we must adopt. But I do think the debate needs to be conducted in a way that provides people with information, lets them find out more when they want to know more, and gives them some sense that people do understand what's happening. And whilst they mightn't understand it at great depth because they're not expert in that field, they do other things with their lives, that they do know and do feel confident that there are people committed to finding a solution to whatever the problem may be. And that's an important message to get across, and that one's being blurred at the moment.
Yeah, are those messages getting mixed? Is there a problem with the science sales pitch? I mean, if the climate change data is definitive, if GM research is so important, why can't you convince the public of those things?
Well, it's partly because the scientific method always leaves some uncertainty. In the experimental and observational sciences, certainly. I mean, you keep doing experiments to try to find out more, and you try to find out more because you know you don't know everything. So what you do is you do enough work, you accumulate a body of opinion that enables you to draw conclusions, and you state those conclusions, and somebody else will put those to the test. So when scientists speak about their science, and you would have seen this as often as I do, and I probably do it myself all the time, probably doing it now actually, you qualify things a bit. You say, well, given what I know now, this is what I think, but, and people who don't understand the scientific process would give, I think, probably undue weight to that uncertainty. So scientists have got to communicate better. I don't think instinctively it has been, sort of part of the way of life of scientists generally for a long time, and they've tended to let their results do the talking. Well, now they've got to do the talking too, and they've got to do it in a way that the public can access and be comfortable with.
We've talked about the vitriol directed at science. There's also been direct action, and the most recent being the GM crop at the CSIRO. What was your reaction to that incident?
Well, I thought it was sad and a pity, and I suppose like most scientists I was irritated by it. I mean, the aim of that research is to better the lot of humankind. And as I said earlier, to think that all we have to do is do more of what we used to do or do now, and we're going to solve some of those problems with respect to food, for example, that we know are now looming, then we're in a very, very silly place.
What would it mean for a scientist to have their work physically destroyed like that?
I imagine that they would have felt partially destroyed themselves.
And what about their integrity being challenged in the same process?
Well, it is, and of course, I mean, the scientists are human beings. I'm sure there's the odd rogue in there, but the overwhelming majority, and certainly the overwhelming majority of the ones I know, and I know quite a lot, are people of great integrity, ethical commitment, don't want to break the rules, don't believe that they know better than every other single person and therefore they can do what they feel like doing, because they, in their judgment alone, believe that it's going to be for the good. I do think the public has an interest in what scientists do. There is a serious commitment to public interest in science, I believe, and that does mean that what you do has to be acceptable to the public, which is why I again believe that serious regulation on some of these new techniques and new technologies is an important part of the development of those technologies. But underpinning that is the belief that if we think we can have a secure and prosperous world for the overwhelming majority of human beings on it by 2050 by doing more of what we do now, then we're in a very silly place.
If governments don't fund science, it's inevitable that corporations will, I guess, and that's another source of funding that they'll turn to. And I guess by the nature of that process, there's a vested interest. So is it okay for a company such as Monsanto to enter into a relationship with the CSIRO? Is that an inevitable part of the research process and the funding process?
I think that there's a public good element in research, and I think that's the government's responsibility to fund it, and to fund it properly. So there's no point in Australia doing second-rate, third-rate stuff. Australia's got to be up there with the best in the world, just like we hope to be at cricket again, and just like one day we might be at tennis again, or whatever, you know. I don't think we should ever set our sights too low. And I think the government has a very serious role to play in funding that research in the public interest. And ultimately, there will be, from a lot of it, public benefit to flow. And that'll be because we have better things, or we know more. I think there is a role for companies to get involved in research. I doubt that there are too many companies in the world that will fund public research in the public interest, in the sense that we will fund you to do something that is of no particular interest to our company. I don't think there are too many of them. So what you have to do is have safeguards in place.
There's a sinister portrayal of relationships with organisations like Monsanto and research organisations like the CSIRO. Does that fit a political narrative more than what we're actually seeing in the reality of what's happening?
Well, it's a reminder to be alert. I do think you have to be alert. I mean, I believe that, you know, their role is to get stuff out there and to make money. Your role is to get stuff out there to help people, and as a consequence of that, you have to be alert that the marriage is a happy one, and not one where, you know, you are disadvantaging your organisation or the public as a consequence of the deal. But you can make anything sound sinister if you want to, if that's the way you live your life. You know, there are some people who probably think it's very sinister that I'm wearing a blue tie today, and they could construct a story about that. I wish them well. Happened to be the first one I put my hand on this morning, but that's another matter.
What's your message to government about the value of science and the importance of backing that up with real dollars?
Well, I don't think we'll get anywhere without science. I mean, let me give you a little example. Something like 40% of the world's arable land is now degraded. The population's going to go up, as I said earlier, by 2 billion people. Australia's going to increase by 75% by 2050. We've got malnourished people already. And how are we going to handle that? So too bad? Because we're not allowed to do something differently. And if we do something differently, that's going to be science.